An ancient dragon is suddenly killed by a human, leaving him baffled. Why me? Did I forget to send a thank you note or something? He wonders, unable to comprehend the attack. As far as he can recall, he's never had any quarrel with humans. In fact, he's gone out of his way to help them on numerous occasions. Despite his curiosity, the humans aren't offering explanations. So, instead of making a fuss, he shrugs and thinks, well, it's been a good run. As he crumbles to dust, he asks the Grim Reaper for a peaceful trip to the afterlife. But the Reaper, always one to throw in a plot twist, stuffs his soul into a newborn instead. The dragon opens his eyes as a baby named Dolan, complete with doting parents and an older brother. Years pass, and Dolan grows into a hardworking, kind-hearted 16-year-old who's got his own place and a daily routine of farming and village life. One day, while fishing with his brother, he recalls that tomorrow he's heading out to the swamp to investigate the mysterious disappearance of all the lizards. His brother tries to talk him out of it, suggesting that the village guards should handle it. But Dolan, ever the I'll-do-it-myself guy, explains that the guards are too busy and it's not worth bothering them over some missing reptiles. After hauling in a decent catch, Dolan heads back to the village to show his friends, Melita and Albert, who admire his fishing skills but worry about his upcoming swamp adventure. Dolan reassures them, explaining he's been preparing for it. He even thanks Melita for helping convince the village chief to let him go, and she, in turn, expresses confidence in his ability to handle things. Back home, while preparing the fish, Dolan reflects on how the village functions as a close-knit community where everyone contributes to its safety. Just then, his friend Ira shows up to remind him about their magic practice, something that had completely slipped his mind. They head over to his magic instructor's place, where Dolan effortlessly blasts a target to pieces with his offensive magic. While his instructor praises his skills, she reminds him that his healing magic could still use a lot of work. Later that evening, Dolan encounters a noble girl named Christina in the town square. With her striking white hair and confident demeanor, she introduces herself, and as they shake hands, Dolan immediately senses she's no ordinary noble. This girl is a fighter. The village chief warns him to be on his best behavior around her, but Dolan's already thinking, I'd better stay on her good side. As he walks away, Dolan muses on how different life is as a human compared to his former dragon self. Instead of worrying about hoarding treasure or battling knights, he now has to deal with practical concerns like surviving winter and avoiding heat stroke in summer. Later, at his parents' house, he enjoys a hearty meal and is reminded by his father that finding a wife wouldn't be a bad idea, especially one who can cook like his mom. Though he's heard it all before, Dolan's still not quite ready to settle down, preferring his single life for the time being. The next morning, as Dolan prepares to head out on his swamp investigation, the entire village turns up to give him a send-off. Though he thinks it's a bit much for what he assumes will be a simple trip, Captain Balin insists it's the least they can do for someone taking on a dangerous mission. Dolan, ever the modest adventurer, smiles and thinks, if only they knew I used to be a dragon. How hard can this really be? Melita, being the voice of reason, reminds Dolan that if he's off playing swamp detective and a monster decides to drop by the village, there'll be no one to keep it from wrecking the place. Everyone in town wants to chip in and help Dolan out, so the local nun, Letitia, gives him a little blessing, and Ira hands him a bento box to keep him from going hangry during his adventure. With a round of luck and good wishes, Dolan sets off to the swamp to solve the mystery of the missing lizards. Turns out, these swamp-dwelling lizards used to swing by Dolan's village for some casual hangs, but then one day, poof, they vanished. Not one to ignore weirdness, Dolan volunteers to investigate, even if he's a bit uneasy about what he might find. When he finally reaches the swamp, he puts his hands to the ground and immediately knows why the lizards split. The earth elemental's power is spiking while the water elemental's is fading. Basically, the place is off balance. Right on cue, Dolan hears rustling in the bushes, putting him on high alert. In this swamp's current state, only something seriously powerful could survive. Sword ready, he braces himself for battle, only to be face to face with a Lamia, and not just any Lamia, a total stunner. Selena, the charming if a bit scatterbrained snake woman, asks if Dolan is alone. Once he confirms, she's visibly relieved, because what she's about to do is apparently so awkward. She'd be mortified if there was an audience. She tries to recall the whole charm spell routine her mom taught her, but bless her, she's way off. Dolan, more confused than charmed, watches as she fumbles through it. But just as things start to get more bizarre, a massive mud monster shows up, and this one doesn't look like it's here for small talk. The mud monster charges at Selena, but Dolan jumps in, slicing off its arm and dragging her to safety. They hunker down, staying silent until the monster gives up the search. Once it's gone, Selena, still catching her breath, asks what that beast was. Dolan explains it's a rogue earth elemental, likely the reason all the lizards bailed. Apparently, an earthquake threw the elemental into a tantrum, and things aren't going to return to normal anytime soon. Dolan asks if Selena, like other Lamias, can use magic. She confirms, but being an earth monster herself, most of her spells would just be a bad joke against the elemental. However, she's got one trick that might work, so Dolan hatches a plan. He'll take on the monster head-on, while Selena backs him up. Selena's a little nervous about teaming up with a human she just met, but she's fresh out of options. They spring into action, and while Dolan engages the elemental in combat, Selena casts a spell, summoning a giant snake to bind the creature. Though the spell doesn't hold for long, it buys Dolan enough time to get within striking range. Infusing his sword with energy, he slices the elemental in half, finishing the job. Unfortunately, the victory is a messy one, as all the elemental mud turns back into regular mud, splattering Selena from head to tail. Dolan rushes over to check if Selena's okay, and while she's not injured, she's got an unplanned mud bath to deal with. Later, they set up camp, and Dolan cooks dinner for the two of them. Selena's surprised that he's not freaked out by her Lamia-ness, to which Dolan casually mentions he's met Lamias before. However, Selena's different. Most Lamias are wary of humans, but Selena's kind of, well, adorable. As they share a meal, Selena explains why she's away from her village. It's tradition for 17-year-old Lamias to leave home and find a husband. But thanks to a curse, Lamias only give birth to girls, and finding a guy who's immune to their poisonous touch. Yeah, not exactly easy. Her mom lucked out by finding the perfect human husband, and Selena hopes for similar fortune. Dolan just nods, saying he's happy for her, which flusters Selena, making her think he's treating her like a kid. But Dolan assures her he just finds her cute, and that sends her into an adorable spiral of awkwardness. She tries his soup and loves it so much she starts gushing about it, only to catch herself mid-ramble and apologize for the enthusiasm. Dolan laughs it off, happy she enjoyed it, reminiscing about how his family used to gather around a fire on cold nights with the same dish. Selena can sense how much Dolan cherishes his family, a far cry from his former life as a solitary dragon. The next morning, it's time to say goodbye. Dolan wishes Selena luck on her husband quest, but before parting ways, he wants to give her a gift. Knowing Lamias like life energy, he pours some of his own into her, but it's a little too potent, causing her to faint. Whoops. Once she recovers, Dolan invites her to visit him sometime at his village, and with that, he sets off for home. A while later, a guard and a local from Dolan's quaint village spotted a woman crossing the bridge toward Veran. The civilian, apparently an expert in unsolicited advice, warned that traveling alone was dangerous for a young woman. Selena, unfazed, assured him she could handle herself. After all, she was tougher than she looked, just a humble Lamia. Upon realizing she was a snake woman, the men practically tripped over themselves in a panic, leaving Selena rolling her eyes at the overreaction. Meanwhile, back at Dolan's place, Magero was schooling him and Eri on the fine art of magical medicine. Unlike regular medicine, these potions came with a side of danger. One wrong move and boom, fatal mistake. As soon as she finished this cheery explanation, Dolan made his first blunder. Megara chuckled, noting that delicate tasks weren't exactly his strong suit. Eri, ever the supportive sister, cheered him up by pointing out his knack for herbs and his talent with kids, shyly adding that he was, well, quite handsome. Dolan, grateful but still struggling with the whole complex recipe thing, admitted he had a long way to go. Megara, on the other hand, gave Eri's potion a gold star and sent her off to play, though Eri chose to help her mom instead. Reflecting on his past life as a dragon, where medicine wasn't exactly a concern, Dolan figured that explained his trouble with these delicate tasks. Megara reassured him that while he had killer offensive magic, mastering potions would take time. She reminded him of her go-to phrase, correct knowledge and small deviations, a fancy way of saying, everyone messes up, it's part of the process. Later, she planned to teach him how to turn his poisonous mishaps into actual antidotes. At lunch at Eri's place, Dolan joined in a prayer to Mael, the nature goddess, which sparked memories of how long it had been since he'd last seen her. Afterward, realizing he was late, Dolan rushed off, but got flagged down by Mew, a semi-human who offered him fresh milk. Despite his hurry, Mew was insistent, and Dolan, never one to turn down free milk, obliged before finally making his exit. As Dolan sprinted across the fields, Christina watched from afar. Eventually, he reached the training grounds, where 3 boys were enthusiastically practicing spear techniques under Albert's supervision. Dolan apologized for his tardiness, but Albert waved it off with a grin, calling for a break. The boys, eager to impress, swarmed Dolan to show off their skills, but he told them to save it for after the break. Just then, Dolan's monster senses started tingling. Albert noticed and asked what was up, but Dolan brushed it off, playing it cool. Later that evening, following his hunch, Dolan ventured into the forest. His instincts were telling him a familiar creature was nearby. After some wandering, he stumbled upon Selena. She greeted him with a smirk, clearly amused by his surprise at seeing her again. Selena explained that her quest to find a husband hadn't exactly been going well, so she decided to swing by Dolan's village. Dolan, thrilled by her visit, enthusiastically offered his help, even suggesting they live together. Selena, caught off guard, panicked, asking if he was serious since, she was a monster. Dolan, unfazed, explained that his village was home to all kinds of beast folk and demihumans. Sure, they might be a little wary of Lamia at first, but with her powers and sweet nature, she'd win them over in no time. Surprised, Selena hadn't expected humans to be so open to her. Dolan, in a moment of honesty, confessed that her presence would definitely make his life more enjoyable. As he reflected on that, he realized he might have been flirting, awkward, but the offer was on the table, and Selena accepted. She then admitted she had an ulterior motive. She hoped Dolan could share some of his life energy with her, as it made her feel amazing. Dolan, being Dolan, casually promised that once they moved in together, she could have as much as she wanted. Extending his hand, he gave her a little sample of his life energy. With that, Dolan cheerfully explained his grand plan, sealing the deal with a very pleased Lamia. The next day, Captain Balon and his crew were on edge after a 3rd day of mysterious village attacks, where animals were being slaughtered and left behind, accompanied by strange, sunken trails. Their prime suspect? Amia, a half-human, half-creature who'd been terrorizing the area. But what puzzled the captain was why this predator wasn't eating her kills. Without wasting a second, he alerted the village elders, who were equally curious about Amia's sudden appearance in a region she rarely ventured into. Balon was all for forming a squad to hunt her down, but one elder wisely pointed out that their numbers were too few. Instead, they'd need reinforcements from the capital, which meant sending out a messenger. Meanwhile, Dolan overheard the whole thing while gathering wood with Albert, reflecting on how tragic it was that someone like Selena, so kind and gentle, was hated simply for being different. At the village meeting, Magaru, the voice of reason, calmed everyone down. She suggested that perhaps the Lamia was leaving these animals as offerings, not threats, and that they should try to understand her motives. Just then, Eri arrived with the results of the divination. The findings were surprising. Omiya's appearance was a good omen, and they should sit tight and see what unfolded. Dolan, thrilled, raced back to Selena, eager to share that their offering plan had worked. The next day, Captain Balon briefed the soldiers, keeping everyone on high alert after another Omiya sighting. The captain's towering presence had the kids glued to the scene, especially his son Toro. Meanwhile, Dolan couldn't help but reflect that these were the people soldiers, the lieutenant, and even Priestess Letitia who would help him execute the final step of his plan with Selena. Letitia, though, was a wild card. As a messenger of the goddess Mile, if she sniffed out a threat, it would spell disaster for Selena. The night before, Dolan had concocted a clever plan for Selena to save him during training. He'd sneak into a burrowing rabbit's den and give her the signal to swoop in for the rescue. Simple, right? Except, life had other plans. During the training, a guard came running with news of an approaching armored bear. Within moments, the beast burst onto the scene, angry and ready to tear anyone apart. Balon, knowing one swipe from this beast could split a person in two, ordered everyone to hold back. But the real drama. Toro was standing dangerously close. Dolan didn't hesitate. He leaped in front of Toro to shield him. And just when things seemed dire, Selena jumped into action, casting a spell that sent the bear packing back into the forest. The village was stunned as the creature obeyed her command. Afterward, Selena checked on Toro, but Balon's trust wasn't easily won. He demanded to know what her game was. Dolan and Malad defended her, pointing out that she had just saved their lives, but Balon wasn't convinced. He wanted answers. Why was Selena leaving animals in the village? What did she want? Selena, with the calm of someone who has nothing left to lose, explained that she saved them because she didn't want families to suffer from unnecessary loss. She pleaded to stay in the village, revealing that her father was human and had loved her mother deeply. Balon turned to Priestess Letitia for a verdict. After receiving a message from the goddess Mile, Letitia confirmed that Selena was no threat, and harmony was the way forward. She even gently urged Selena, who had kept her eyes closed to avoid scaring the humans, to open them because everything was all right now. Unfortunately, Selena's earlier injuries caught up with her, and she fainted. When she finally recovered, the villagers welcomed her with open arms, gifting her a house. Inside, she found a cute plush mushroom, an unexpected yet thoughtful gesture from Captain Balon himself. Speaking of Balon, he later apologized for pointing his weapon at her after she'd saved his son's life. Eri then asked Selena to share her knowledge of Lamius so they could care for her better, and Selena, in turn, expressed a desire to learn about humans. And in a final touch of drama and humor, Dolan pretended not to know Selena, extending his hand in mock introduction. She teared up and accepted, and with that, Dolan officially welcomed her to Veron Village. If you're loving the drama and want more, hit that like button. Your support keeps me going. Subscribe and turn on those notifications so you never miss a twist.